Hi everyone and welcome back to chapter 20, In the Snow. Are you sure about this? Ellie's nose was pressed against the glass of the Emporium's front window. She peered out into the wintry Manhattan darkness. Snow had begun to fall. It was now well after midnight and Mr. Silver had been gone an entire day. I'm sure, said Daniel, pulling on his coat and gloves and scarf. Oh, I wish I could go with you. And to Daniel's great surprise, Ellie grabbed him and hugged him tight. Be careful. I will. I'd better go. The New York streets were eerily silent that night, every sound smothered by the thick layer of snow coating the city. Mostly, people had chosen not to brave the bitter cold and the ice-coated sidewalks. Central Park seemed even bigger now that Daniel was alone, and the darkness brought with it the sort of characters who wished to go about their business unnoticed. He tucked his chin to his chest and hurried on, trying hard not to look at anyone. When he walked under a small footbridge, he imagined that someone was following and began to run. He did not stop until he was past the plaza. 8 blocks later, he spun into the alley and arrived at Bazaar's Bazaar. There was only one other customer inside, a man in a long brown coat browsing row upon row of bottles. Daniel approached the counter. Excuse me? The shopkeeper, who had been examining a gold locket with a magnifying glass, at the sound of Daniel's voice looked up, one milky eye magnified through the lens. No refunds, he said, and he turned his attention back to the locket on the counter. What? I never forget a face, said the shopkeeper, especially a face connected with so much cash. You were in here a few nights back with the rich man. Well, you can tell him from me, sending a kid in isn't going to soften me any. Oh no, I don't do refunds. Daniel shook his head. That's not why I'm here. I wanted to ask you about what you sold us the other night. The shopkeeper looked up and smiled, showing Daniel a crooked row of rotten yellow teeth. Ah, a very fine item. Was it? The shopkeeper leaned over the counter on folded arms. Very fine. Let's just say it's not every day you come into possession of a vial of unicorn blood. Sorry. A crash from nearby. The second customer dropped a metal box to the floor, was on his hands and knees scooping up the powder that had spilled. Hey, yelled the shopkeeper, careful with the merchandise. You break it, you buy it. Unicorn blood, said Daniel. Are you pulling my leg? I'm not pulling anything. So you're telling me there are really unicorns out there? Daniel had come to accept that the world was a far stranger place than he had ever imagined. Even so, a unicorn seemed a little far-fetched. Kid, if you know where to look, everything's out there. Why would someone want unicorn blood? The shopkeeper smiled. Unicorn blood, he said, is sometimes called liquid life. Just a few drops will cure you of your ills and boost your strength. It's very rare and very expensive, which is the quality I like best. And there it was. What Daniel had hoped was not true. Silver was ill. There was no other explanation, and the treasure was a cure. When he left the bazaar, the cold of the night had sharpened, and the snow was falling harder. He pulled his coat and scarf tight, leaned into the wind as he walked. In Central Park, trees sagged under the weight of the snow. Daniel's feet crunched through the sparkling white canvas, leaving footprints. When he reached the darkest part of the path, where it wound under a little footbridge, he was struck again by the strong sense that someone was following. He cast a quick glance back the way he'd come. He was not alone. Through the falling snow, he saw a figure in a long brown coat and recognised it as the customer he'd seen in the bazaar. The figure slowed as Daniel turned, as though trying not to look suspicious. And then something happened, something that turned Daniel's spine to ice. 2 glowing dots appeared on the figure's face. They were eyes. Daniel could see this entrance to the park 200 metres away. He began to run. Cold air burned his lungs as his feet pounded the snow. The gate drew nearer with every step, but the man was catching up. Daniel's blood froze as a hand grabbed at his coat. He squirmed and yelped, managing to slip out of it. He broke free and tore through the gate to the streets. The Emporium was only a block away. Daniel skidded between two parked cars, leapt onto the sidewalk. He ran and ran and ran, not looking back, imagining cold hands grabbing him. Warm light poured from the shop window just a street away, and he thought he saw someone standing at the door, someone very tall. Daniel's feet hit a frozen puddle. He landed hard on the ice, his knee taking the brunt of the impact. He looked up into a skeletal face, eyes glowing amber. The man chasing him was suddenly in front of him. "Where's the unicorn blood?" said the old man. The voice was a rasping sound. "What? I don't have it." "I'm not messing around, kid. Tell me where it is." The man stopped mid-thought and gazed up at something. For half a heartbeat he was still, like a startled deer. Then his burning eyes grew wide and he began to run. Something else brushed past Daniel, a blur of grey that was gone in an instant. He gathered himself. He could feel the blood seeping from his knee where he fell. The short walk across the street to the Emporium seemed to take forever. "So who saved you?" said Ellie, back in the warmth of the shop. She was dabbing at Daniel's knee. "I don't know," he said through gritted teeth. "For a second I thought it was Mr. Silver." "Oh, I'd have seen him if it was," she said. "There, done. So you really think Papa is ill?" "It makes sense," said Daniel, rolling his trouser leg back down. "The way he's been acting, how old he looks all of a sudden. He can't have bought the unicorn blood for anything else, can he? The shopkeeper said the stuff's famous for curing diseases." Ellie took a long breath. "Why hasn't he told me? He probably doesn't want to worry you." "Oh, Daniel, what if the cure didn't work? What if we can't find Papa? What if he's gone somewhere far into the shop and he won't be coming back? The plan he tried to leave us, it might have been instructions for what to do after he's gone." The bell at the door sang out and a deep voice said, "Hello? Anybody there?" "Oh, we didn't lock the door," said Ellie. She wandered around towards the front door where a tall, broad-shouldered man stood, silver hair and moustache glinting in the firelight. He wore an expensive-looking charcoal suit and carried a silver-handled cane. Electric blue eyes darted around the room, but he did not see Ellie. She was as much a ghost to him as any other outsider who came into the Emporium. The tall man spotted Daniel at the back of the shop and moved towards him, passing straight through Ellie like she was made of nothing but light and shadow. He stopped in front of Daniel, staring down at him. "Are you looking for something in particular?" Daniel asked. "Not something," said the man. "Someone. I'm here to see Lucian Silver." Ellie held up her hands, indicating that she didn't know the stranger. "Nobody's ever come looking for Papa before." Mr. Silver isn't available." The tall man reached into his coat and produced a grey leather wallet. From the wallet he took a piece of paper and unfolded it. He handed the paper to Daniel. It was a clipping from a newspaper, some sort of review about a magic show. The date on the paper was 1884. There was a picture of the two men. One of them was the man who stood before Daniel now, and he had not aged at all since the photograph was taken. The other man staring out from the picture was a teenage Mr. Silver. There was no doubting it. Beneath the photograph a caption read, "The incredible magic act of Vindictus Sharp, Wright, and Lucian Silver is the talk of the theatrical scene." Ellie scanned the clipping over Daniel's shoulder. "He knows Papa," she said. "As you've probably gathered from the photograph, my name is Vindictus Sharp," said the tall man. "I was, and remain, a friend of Lucian's." He took back the photograph and indicated the young Mr. Silver. "In fact, I was his teacher." "Somebody taught Mr. Silver?" said Daniel. Sharp nodded. "I will come straight to the point. I am worried about Lucien. I attended his charming Halloween ball, and I was shocked to see how weak he has become. And now tonight, when I return to check on him, I find a child running the shop, the very same child I just rescued from that man on the sidewalk." "That was you," said Daniel. Sharp waved the question away. "If you wish to repay me, tell me what is going on around here. Where is Lucien Silver?" Daniel glanced at Ellie. "I don't like him," she said. She sniffed the air around Sharp. "He smells funny, and if he's such great chums with Papa, how come I've never heard of him?" Ellie had been brought up by Mr. Silver to protect the Emporium, to trust no one from the outside world. Daniel knew this. But these were desperate times. Silver was missing, and the Emporium was beginning to decay. Vindictor Sharp had saved Daniel's life, and he seemed genuinely worried about Mr. Silver. Surely Daniel owed him a chance. "We don't know where Mr. Silver is," he said. "He's missing, but we think he's somewhere in the Emporium, and we think he's ill. He bought unicorn blood. That's why that man was chasing me. He heard me asking the shopkeeper about the blood and fancied some for himself, I guess." Sharp sat on the edge of a table piled high with golden coins. "Ooh, this is most worrying," he said. "Why are you so sure Lucien is still inside the shop? Is there anything you're not telling me?" Daniel was torn. His hand moved to the pocket of his jacket, to the Book of Wonders. "Don't do it," said Ellie, but it was too late. Sharp's eyes were already on Daniel's hand. "What have you got there?" Daniel could do nothing but bring out the book. "Mr. Silver doesn't leave the shop without this," he said. "Not ever. I found it." When he saw the cracked black cover, Sharp made a tiny movement with his hand, as if he were about to reach out. His eyes did not leave the book as he did so. "Ooh, this is worse than I thought. I know Lucien, and I know all about that book. If he has left it behind, then he must be in real trouble." Daniel watched Sharp, who was watching the book. He slipped the book back into his pocket. Sharp flashed a smile. "You've written in the book. I can tell by the way you hold it." Daniel looked to Ellie, who was staring back at him, her mouth open. "Is it true?" she said. "Has Papa let you write in it?" Daniel hung his head. He knew he'd technically done nothing wrong by writing in the book, but somehow he felt guilty for being able to do what Ellie couldn't, as if he was stealing a piece of her Papa away from her. "Yes," he said, both to Ellie and Sharp. Ellie nodded, but there was a faraway look in her eyes, and Daniel wished he'd been honest with her from the start. Sharp stood up, scattering a pile of golden coins across the table. "Then you understand what is at stake if Lucien is not found. It will be the end of all this." He motioned around the room and then pointed to the curtain with his cane. "The end of all that lies beyond." Daniel had not wanted to think about this, although part of him knew the answer. The Emporium and the people within its walls couldn't survive without Mr. Silver. "Will you help?" he heard himself asking, though his voice seemed to come from somewhere far off. Panic was clouding his thoughts. He didn't wish to be ripped from a life of magic and friendship, from a place that felt like home. Sharp nodded. "Certainly I will. I hate to see an old friend in trouble. Lucien would do the same for me." He clapped his hands together and strode to the red velvet curtain. "I shall begin immediately. Rest up, Daniel Holmes, and join me whenever you wish." And with that he was gone. "Oh, I hope you know what you're doing," said Ellie. "Once you invite someone in, it can be very hard to get rid of them. I told you, Papa has never let anyone see behind the scenes before, except you. There's a reason for that." "He saved my life," said Daniel, "and he's worried about Mr. Silver." "He's weird," said Ellie. "I don't want anything to do with him." She pointed a finger in Daniel's face. "Sharp's your responsibility. I'm going to help Caleb with the search for Papa." "I'll come too," said Daniel. "Oh, I don't think so. You'll be far too busy keeping an eye on your new pal, won't you? a very close eye. There was already a nagging doubt in Daniel's mind. Had he done the right thing, inviting a stranger into the shop? Surely someone who risked their own life to save his couldn't be bad. Ellie, he said, about me writing in the book. I was going to tell you. I really was. But Ellie was already gone. I'll see you next time for chapter 21. Bye.